Rune Giant. She's big, really big. I like big characters that make you feel like you are this towering unit that looks over everyone and everything, leaving an impact wherever you go. And Rune Giant, well, she's a giant. She's also a blacksmith, wielding 2 hammers, essentially a portable forging setup, allowing her to enchant allies' weapons and as a result their attack while on the go. I also like her Norse theme and how she could be a relative of Valkyrie, expanding the Clash world through the growth of characters' family groups. For her implementation in Project R.I.S E, I see Rune Giant as a tank support hero whose playstyle revolves around staying close to allies and supplying them with buffs. Her hero kit can consist of slow but powerful hammer swings, enchantments to allies, potentially not only boosting their damage but also their other stats. After all, she is the Rune Giant, so maybe she can employ the power of other runes and not just damage ones. And she could make use of her other forging equipment, like her tweezers, large anvil, and forge. Berserker. From mother to daughter. Like Rune Giant, she is a giant, but smaller because she is a kid. And while not a blacksmith, she does love weapons. She wields 2 axes after all, and is very fast at swinging them. She's a decently tanky character who deals a decent amount of damage. Not because every swing is packed with power, although they probably are, but because of the sheer number of them. She's a not so little havoc breaker, and I love that. Like Rune Giant, I also like her Norse theme and her potential ties to both Valkyrie and Rune Giant herself. For her implementation in Project R.I.S E, I see Berserker as a damage hero, whose playstyle revolves around moving fast, attacking everyone on her path. Her hero kit could consist of very fast axe swings, leaps to close in the distance on enemies, and a mode where she truly goes berserk, drastically increasing her movement and attack speed so that she can zoom through the floor and be a nuisance. Now, while I do think Rune Giant and Berserker can work as standalone heroes, I see them as a duo due to their relationship. When they were first released in Clash Royale, there was a point being made about them being a duo based on looks, a duo based potentially on kin, and most importantly, a duo based on interaction. They synergize well together because Berserker's high hit speed takes good advantage of Rune Giant's attack bonus buff that takes place every 3rd hit. That is, Berserker attacks so fast she gets many 3rd hits. When thinking about all of this, it's like they're meant to be together, so I think it would be cool if they were implemented together as one hero to always keep that synergy present. I'm not certain what would be the best way to do that, but my current idea goes like this. Rune Giant would have a backpack, so whenever you're playing as her, Berserker is chilling inside the backpack. She'll just stay there, idly, while you're taking care of business as Rune Giant. When you switch to Berserker, Rune Giant will throw Berserker, yield control to her, and hide herself with an invisibility rune. She'll be untargetable and invincible, following you around as you are taking care of business as Berserker. When you switch back to Rune Giant, Berserker would yield control to her, who then reveals herself, grabs Berserker and places her back in the bag. This would be how they swap places, working as a tag team that offers you 2 very different playstyles for the price of 1 hero slot. For the damage synergy, Rune Giant will have a passive ability that allows her to boost the attack of allies within an area around her, even when she's not being controlled, allowing Berserker to benefit from it. Storm Wizard. She's a wizard who summons storms. Storms! Well, twisters to be exact. That's what she would do back in Clash Mini, trapping enemies in the air for a few seconds, taking them out of the fight. For her basic attack, she shot discs of wind. As such, her powers came in the way of wind creation / manipulation, and she used them to incapacitate enemies, which was kind of cool, like her hair. What specifically interests me about this character, however, is her name. Maybe this wasn't intended when naming her, but the fact she is called Storm Wizard, well, in English at least, makes me wonder if her powers could go as far as summoning storms, like rain, lightning, heat, sand, snow types of storms. I think of it as her sending forward a big, slow-moving windstorm that occupies a big area and evolves into a different type of storm based on the environment it is summoned in. Not only would it give her a cool new move, but also utility based on the added effects of the different storms. For her implementation in Project R.I.S E, I see Storm Wizard as a support hero whose playstyle revolves around controlling the positioning of enemies and providing utility with her wind powers. Her hero kit could consist of shooting wind discs and summoning twisters and storms that damage, pull, push, incapacitate, and negatively affects enemies, but allies positively. She could also passively fly due to her wind powers, and if weather was a naturally occurring phenomenon in the game and it had both negative and positive effects on both the players and enemies, she could be immune to the negative effects since storms are her thing. Pink Fury. She is dripped out and her weapon is a big hammer. I like characters with comically large weapons, and she is no exception. I also like her hairstyle quite a bit and the imposing aura she emits. She is a cool looking character that has the potential to be an absolute powerhouse, and this is through the way she works. I'm not sure where her powers come from exactly, if from herself or her hammer, but she is all about elixir. She generates elixir by defeating enemies and gets stronger the more elixir you have saved. Since Project R.I.S.E also has an elixir system where you can accumulate elixir in floors, her mechanic would transfer well. Not perfectly, since as someone pointed out to me a while ago, it would clash with the game's reliance on elixir for meta progression, but let's overlook that for the sake of the concept. For her implementation in Project R.I.S E, I see Pink Fury as a well-rounded hero, kind of like a blank slate, whose playstyle revolves around farming elixir and switching roles as the situation calls for it. Her hero kit could consist of a passive ability that lets her generate more elixir than other heroes, traits that let her boost a specific stat the more elixir is kept, and a variety of hammer combos and moves to exercise her potential great strength and speed on opponents. Something could also be done with her elixir theme, where she could shape elixir into different things. Bowler. Bowling! A big blue dude. A big blue bro. A big blue beefy bro who throws big boulders. A big boulder bowler big blue beefy bro. He's one of my favorite Clash characters. I have liked him ever since he first released in Clash of Clans. I like his design appearance wise, how he is a big blue humanoid creature, and I like his design gameplay wise, how he throws big rocks which either bounce or roll depending on how he throws them. His voice lines are pretty neat as well. And do you know that he's a goblin who became like this after drinking too much dark elixir? There's actually no straightforward confirmation that he is a goblin, but his class in Clash Mini and this comment by Supercell staff member do seem to point that way. For his implementation in Project R.I.S E, I see Bowler as a damage hero whose playstyle revolves around attacking enemies from mid-range and delaying their advances with his boulders. His hero kit could consist of both overhand and underhand boulder throws, the former bouncing and traveling farther, the latter pushing back enemies and potentially being able to follow a curving path like in real life bowling. He could also set rocks out in the open, serving as obstacles to block paths and as hazards that damage enemies by interacting with them like a game of pool. Giant Skeleton. Another one of my all-time favorite Clash characters. Giant unit, giant weapon, giant smile. Like the Rune Giant, I like his colossal towering presence. He's a big guy with lots of health that smashes enemies with his fists and ends things with a big bang. His downfall bringing immense value to the rest of the team. It's an outcome that can be difficult to achieve, having to maneuver him to the intended location, but making it work can very much turn the tide of the fight. For his implementation in Project R.I.S E, I see Giant Skeleton as a tank damage hero whose playstyle revolves around protecting teammates by taking in as much damage as possible, as well as stopping enemies with his bombs. His This hero kit could and most likely would mainly consist of many types of big combat moves like punches, round smashes, kicks, and so on. As for his trademark bomb, since it is his last second measure, it will probably be most reasonable to make it his passive ability. I do think it could be implemented in other ways. For example, the bomb could be an activatable ability, letting you explode it on command, and anytime he does it, the explosion launches his bones around, letting you now control his head, which is where his soul now resides, and by going around collecting his scattered bones, he could go back to his giant self and repeat the process again and again. He could learn from the bombers and simply throw the bombs, or set them on the ground to explode on their own while he's free to move somewhere else. But part of me does feel like making it work as it always has would be best to keep his essence the same. Maybe a compromise can be made. Yeti. Yeti? How do you say it? The gentle giant. Or at least those are the vibes he gives me. I know he seems pretty angry all the time, attacking villages with his Yeti-mite buddies, but I think of him as more of a chill, kind, fluffy, wise, ancient, mystical guy who is just minding his own business, roaming around. I picture him heading to some unknown destination, pushing through a snowstorm, while the little ones snuggle together to hide from the cold. I picture him buried in the snow, taking a break, while one of the Yeti-mites wanders off and now Yeti has to go get them. I picture him observing the animals of the snow-covered forest while the Yeti-mites are trying to look for a fight. I picture him returning home after a long day, a cave up high in the mountains with the Yeti-mites deep in sleep and Yeti himself ready for some well-needed rest. That said, I do also picture him getting angry and going on the offensive whenever he or someone he cares about feels threatened. He knows he can be a force of nature if he wants to. For his implementation in Project R.I.S.E, I see him as a tank damage hero, whose playstyle revolves around constantly moving around and going back and forth between offense and defense as the situation calls for it. So kind of similar to Pink Fury, but while Pink Fury would have to commit to a role before entering a floor and could potentially do any role really well, Yeti would be more about protection and damage and would always be able to do both. His hero kit could consist of powerful blows, Yeti-mites jumping out and attacking enemies, picking up and throwing enemies, items, his own Yeti-mites and maybe even players, charging forward with his horns, roaring that pushes enemies, and covering himself and allies with his arms to reduce damage. Since he inhabits the cold, he could also form big snowballs to throw, and maybe even summon a snowstorm that freezes enemies. And that's it. These are some of the heroes I would like in Project R.I.S E. At least in theory. In practice, who knows how well they will work. This is entry number 1 of hopefully more in the future, where I talk about heroes and other things I would like to see in the game. So get ready. Alright, thank you all and have a good one.